But first, with the impending arrival tonight of Julian Assange on Australian soil, the Albanese government thinks it's had a big win. And sure, everyone who's habitually on the side of troublemakers and who barracks for every other country but our own was an Assange sympathiser. But I'm not sure that's anything like the majority of Australians, who are likely to see this as another niche obsession from a Green Left Prime Minister, who I'm sure will now meet with Assange in front of the cameras and help turn him into the sort of celebrity that the ABC loves now that he's home. Who knows, he might even run for Labor or the Greens in the Senate, given how crazy things are on the left. But again, all of that's a sideshow with ordinary people. With inflation ticking up today and cost of living pressures the biggest concern for most voters, and government policies a band-aid at best, I reckon this government's in trouble. Now, sure, the conventional wisdom is that all governments get a second term. But most governments don't get elected under false pretences as this one did, promising to cut your power bill by $275 a year, promising not to change legislated tax cuts, promising not to change super, promising not to drive your mortgage rates up either. Quite apart from Peter Dutton's nuclear commitment, which is the first sign of realism and honesty we've had in the energy debate for about a decade, I reckon the opposition's characterisation of the Prime Minister is starting to bite. Weak and out of his depth. That's what the coalition's saying, and more Australians are thinking it too. Take his handling of Senator Fatima Payman. Never before has a Labor MP crossed the floor without sanction. Indeed, this is only the second time in Labor's history that an MP has crossed the floor during their time in government. The last time was under Bob Hawke, when two Labor politicians, Senator George Georges and House MP Graham Campbell, crossed the floor. Both men were suspended from the party by Hawke. Even abstaining from a vote under other Labor leaders has had severe repercussions. Back in 1991, three Labor senators, Bruce Childs, John Coates and Margaret Reynolds, abstained from a Senate vote supporting the first Gulf War. Now, despite their standing in the party, this is an abstention. All three were suspended from caucus. Now, all of this is contained in a paper from the Parliamentary Library that I pulled out of my files last night, meaning this is the first time in history that a rat has been allowed to stay in the ranks of Labor without a sanction. In question time today, Peter Dutton raised Payman with the Prime Minister.
When the Prime Minister condemned the violent River to the Sea chant, Labor Senator Fatima Payman publicly rebuked him and repeated it. Yesterday, Senator Payman crossed the floor to support the Greens' hate-filled campaign to foment social divisions on Palestine, apparently without consequences. Prime Minister Bob Hawke, when he was leader of the Labor Party, suspended two members for such actions. Every leader since him has stood up and shown strength of leadership. Will the Prime Minister do the same?
And here's the Prime Minister's response.
I met with Senator Payne earlier today. She will not be attending the Labor caucus for the rest of this session. What I do is show leadership for our united team.
The rest of the session, I mean, we're talking about one meeting, that's all, and missing it to be a blessing, not a sanction. It avoids Payman facing her angry Labor colleagues. It spares Albanese the humiliation. Now, compared to Hawke, that's at best a wet lettuce, isn't it? I mean, does Albanese, has he unilaterally abrogated the forever rule that Labor MPs have no right whatsoever to cross the floor on anything at all? Or does that rule still apply to everyone else except the young Muslim woman? Having now defied him and her party, is Payman allowed to cross the floor again without consequence? Are Labor's Jewish MPs, or the rare few that actually support Israel, are they now to be given similar leeway? The Prime Minister has either given up on internal discipline or he's succumbed to a special type of identity politics inside the Labor Party. Either way, nothing has exposed his lack of clout, his internal weakness more than this. Then there's the PM's inability to replace any of his obviously incompetent ministers, such as the wretched Andrew Giles or the laughable empty vessel that's Chris Bowen. Meanwhile, government policies are making all our deeper problems worse. Under Labor, government spending has more or less permanently gone up from 24% of GDP to 26%. Much of that spending is misspent. Look at the out-of-control NDIS, soon to have nearly 1 million Australians as clients and cost us $100 billion a year. Reports again today of the sheer waste include, as revealed by the Minister Bill Shorten, crystal therapy, bariatric surgery, washing machines, even birdseed and tickets to Wet and Wild. I mean, that's a water slide theme park of the Gold Coast, for those that don't know. Is it any wonder inflation's sticky and has jumped up again today, leading to speculation of a rate rise in coming months, not the cut we all hoped? Then there's the productivity-crushing new rules that allow unions to walk into every business with 15 staff or more. Then there's the energy insanity, thinking that we can move from 60% coal-fired power now to just under 10% coal in just 6 years, without blackouts and no massive rise in power costs. Then there's the complete torpor on defence. Nuclear-powered submarines finally turning up, if nothing goes wrong, in 10 years' time, while we're actually retiring warships now and cancelling new weaponry. And yet the world's never been more dangerous now than in decades. Now, I know we can't blame the Albanese government for things like Extinction Rebellion, Invasion Day vandals toppling statues of Captain Cook and pro-Hamas protesters swarming our cities. State governments have got to get the police to enforce the law there. But the trouble is that at least half the Labor Party is on the side of the ratbags. At least half the Labor Party is cheering them on. That's why the vandals are emboldened. That's why the police are enfeebled. Still, with the bastardised Stage 3 tax cuts coming soon, plus bigger energy handouts, Labor hardheads will be banking on these payoffs to shift the polls and head to a pre-Christmas election, knowing this is about as good as it's going to get. All credit to Peter Dutton for finally creating a contest on energy. But the coalition needs to have all its other policies, plus its candidates in place and money in the bank for an election that could come on within months. Anthony Albanese is in trouble. At best, all he's looking at now is a Labor-Green minority government. He is weakened. He can't even do what every other Labor leader has done in history, and that's to discipline his own MPs across the floor. Now, it might seem like an inside-the-bubble Canberra story, but if you know the history of Labor, this is the canary in the coal mine for this weak and troubled Prime Minister.